Despite Nigeria's rich agricultural resource endowment, the agricultural sector has been growing at a very low rate. Less than 50% of the country's agricultural land is under cultivation. Even then, smallholder and traditional farmers who use rudimentary production techniques with resultant low yields cultivate most of this land. The smallholder farmers are constrained by many problems, including those of poor access to modern inputs and credit, poor infrastructure, inadequate access to markets, land and environmental degradation, and inadequate research and extension services.
We realize that even if the agriculture sector is developing and the power sector is weak, then of course processing and so on and value addition becomes a problem. What we'll expect to get this time is a little below $50 billion. But we're also looking forward to support from many agencies. The World Bank, African Development Bank, International Fund for Agricultural Development, and many other agencies which come to help supplement our programs of growth, especially because in our sector, it's about helping the private sector to grow. The government's involvement in direct production is going to be minimized, except where just to set an example and do a kind of a model for others to follow.
It is estimated that about 20 to 40% of the yearly harvest is lost during processing. The primary cause is the lack of efficient harvesting techniques. Most farmers harvest crops by hand instead of using machines. Also, storage methods are not generally up to standards. Most of the crops are lost to physical damage caused by insects, bacteria, or fungus. Nigeria is looking for ways to diversify from oil reliance. Africa's biggest economy and top energy producer has been hammered by low crude prices, since it relies on oil exports for around 70% of government revenues. The government wants to strengthen the agriculture sector and create jobs and reduce the reliance on costly food imports. Poor transport infrastructure, cheap imports, and unreliable power supply are some of the major obstacles in the way of investors. The inability of farmers to feed the population has led to an increasing reliance on imported food in Nigeria. Last year, the government effectively banned the import of almost 700 goods to prevent a currency collapse and encourage local manufacturing. Erisco is among the few companies that manufacture tomato paste in Nigeria, where they have had to compete with cheap imported brands that saturated the market for years. The company buys tomatoes from local farmers and has a capacity to process 450,000 metric tons of paste per year. But like many, its owner would like to see the government support the business more.
To produce in this country, you must be a courageous man. You must be a hard man and non-nonsense man. We have been taking a lot of insult from this country. I use my money to develop the factory. I don't take NEPA. I'm on my own. I don't have government water. What are you coming to do? I pay tax with government. Yet, you don't appreciate me.
So we have all the ingredients here. We have our groundnut oil, we have the tinned tomatoes, we have onions, and they're well enough.
Tomato paste is a key ingredient in many popular Nigerian dishes like jollof rice and tomato stew.
You can see how red it is.
The country produces about 1.5 million tons of tomatoes annually, of which 45% perish. The Mile 12 market in Lagos, the biggest one-stop tomato shop in West Africa, has a daily turnover of about 1,500 metric tons of tomatoes. Transport is poor, and Nigeria lacks facilities to produce the concentrate needed by factories making tomato paste. Consumers spend $360 million on tomato paste imported from countries such as Italy and China in the meantime.
As a matter of fact, we have markets because of our eating culture, because of our traditional eating system. The market for tomato paste in Nigeria is very huge, about 800,000 metric tons per year. But the problem now is that the market has been created in China.
So our yield per hectare is very, very low because of the absence of mechanized forms of agriculture. The guys who actually produce this 1.5 million tons, a host of them are local farmers, just purely doing subsistence farming. Now imagine if we can deploy some form of mechanized agriculture, or improve our yields per hectare, improve our storage facilities so that these raw materials can be stored in such a way that they don't get bad and there's access to markets, so that industry, some form of value chain approach, can actually make use of this local tomato. Nigeria will make so much money. We spend in the range of $400 to $500 million annually, just purely importing tomato paste and puree. It is a sad affair because we've got local capacity to actually produce it.
Up north, the story is not different. The L&Z factory was started in 2006 with a capital of about $1,200 and targets Fulani cattle herders who bring in the milk for sale. Today, it has grown to have a processing capacity of 20,000 liters of milk per day. The plant also processes yogurt as well, but officials say it's been difficult trying to grow the business.
We have the capacity to produce enough to feed not only Nigeria but the entire West African sub-region. What is lacking is harnessing the milk at the right quantity, the right quality, and delivering to the processing plant at the right time.
Africa's dairy industry produced around 17 million tons of products in 2014, of which around 7 million were made from imported milk. That is according to the International Farm Compressing Network, which promotes knowledge of global dairy. Demand for milk in Africa is expected to grow sharply in the next decade due to population growth and rising incomes, leading to an increase both in production and imports. Nigeria's Fulani cattle herders supply most of the milk here. They are known to roam in search of pasture and water for their animals. Hundreds have been killed in the past in clashes, pitting the cattle herding and largely Muslim Fulani people against mostly Christian settled communities in Nigeria's volatile northeast. Most of them collect their milk in difficult conditions without proper facilities or equipment. Fulani herders also note that poor grass quality has led to low milk production. Lack of storage and processing equipment and poor cooling facilities also hamper milk trade. Lack of proper cooling systems make it impossible for proper milk storage, and farmers often face losses. To help farmers improve on their businesses, L&Z now goes out to their homes to collect milk twice a week, collect fresh milk, which is also tested before being weighed and purchased. While more upmarket areas have a ready market, poor infrastructure and transport networks also compound the cost of doing business. Electricity access and machinery needed to improve efficiency remains unattainable for many farmers in the country. Power cuts often cause losses for many milk suppliers. The power grid provides barely 4 hours of power a day. Abubakar says Nigeria's ability to produce enough milk to feed the West African region can be improved with goodwill from government.
Nigerians producing yogurt, for instance, we don't have any reason to encourage yogurt importation into this country. It's sad and it's criminal for us to allow this to continue to happen.
Dairy processing has been declining over the years in Nigeria, leaving just a few companies like L&Z still barely managing to stay afloat as they grapple with infrastructure challenges and competition from the imported cheaper products.